Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today, we're unpacking a book that has truly reshaped how so many of us understand our inner lives, our relationships, and that persistent whisper of self-doubt.
Hmm.
It's Brené Brown's I Thought It Was Just Me, but it isn't,
Yeah.
making the journey from what will people think to I am enough.
That title alone.
Right. It just hits home for anyone who's ever wrestled with that pervasive pressure to manage how others see us, to curate these carefully edited versions of ourselves for the world.
Yeah, we all kind of do that, don't we?
We all know that feeling, that internal battle where our imperfections feel like these glaring flaws we must desperately conceal. Have you ever felt that struggle, that sense that your imperfections are a secret you need to hide?
Oh, absolutely. It's a feeling that resonates so deeply because it taps into such a fundamental human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, precisely why this book is so significant, so foundational.
Yeah.
It actually started as a self-published work back in 2004 under a slightly different title, Women in Shame.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Women in Shame. Reaching out, speaking truths, and building connections. Then Penguin re-released it in 2007 with the title we know now, and it just exploded from there.
Wow.
Brené Brown calls herself a shame researcher, and her brilliance really lies in clarifying a crucial distinction that most of us, we completely miss it in our daily lives.
Okay.
So throughout this deep dive, we'll explore this distinction and, how it illuminates our deepest fears, how it shapes our connections, and ultimately how it points us toward a more courageous and self-accepting way of being.
Okay, let's unpack this right from the start because it feels like the absolute bedrock of understanding her work, the difference between shame and guilt.
Yes, crucial.
They're often used interchangeably, but they're worlds apart, aren't they?
Completely different feelings.
So, to be clear, guilt is the feeling that you've done something bad. It's about behavior, like, I made a mistake, or I shouldn't have said that.
Right, there's an action attached.
Yeah, it has a clear action attached to it, and it can actually be, a healthy motivator for change. You feel bad about what you did.
Exactly. And that distinction is just vital because shame, as Brown defines it, is entirely different and, frankly, far more insidious.
Okay.
Shame isn't about what you did. It's the crushing belief that you are bad.
Ah, okay. The self.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a feeling that attacks your very core, whispering, I am a mistake. I am unworthy. I am unlovable.
Wow.
And what's fascinating here is that Brown's core belief is that shame separates us. It pushes us away from one another.
Right, unlike guilt, which might make you want to apologize or fix things.
Precisely. Guilt can connect us. I messed up. I need to apologize. But shame isolates. She calls it particularly toxic to our being.
Yeah.
Because it convinces us we're fundamentally flawed and therefore we must hide ourselves.
Which creates this terrible loop.
Exactly. A vicious cycle, almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. As shame disconnects and silences us, it just thrives in that secrecy, creating a breeding ground for deeper anxiety and mental distress. It erodes our trust in ourselves and others precisely because the feeling itself makes it feel incredibly unsafe to share it with anyone, so it reinforces the isolation.
And that just makes perfect sense, doesn't it? If shame tells us we're unworthy, the natural instinct is to hide that perceived unworthiness. And the very act of hiding, of keeping secrets, makes us feel even more isolated.
Exactly. And before we can truly confront shame, we have to acknowledge this fundamental truth that, life is about connection. We're inherently social creatures.
Wired for it.
Absolutely. Designed to be in community. We actually experience profound psychological pain when we're isolated. Think about John Cacioppo's work in Loneliness.
Oh, yeah. Fascinating stuff.
He delves into the neuroscience, showing how social isolation literally activates the same brain regions as physical pain. It's not just being alone. It's this distinct, deep-seated ache.
Wow.
And other works like The Dance of Connection or The Power of the Other, they just underscore how absolutely core this need for healthy, authentic connection is.
Right.
So if we connect this back, shame basically leverages our deepest, most primal fear, the fear of exclusion.
Being kicked out of the tribe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That fear of being cast out, of not belonging. If we believe we're bad and unworthy at our core, we project that fear onto others. We expect them to see us the same way and ultimately reject us.
So that fear is why shame has such a grip.
It's incredibly powerful. It's like a survival mechanism gone haywire.
Okay, so if shame thrives on that fear and separation, how do we possibly fight back? How do we counteract something so deeply ingrained?
It's a huge question.
One of the powerful strategies Brown talks about is stealing fear as a basic component from shame. What does that mean exactly?
It's about consciously choosing to disengage from the fear that fuels the shame, making a deliberate choice.
Okay.
The source tells this really impactful personal story, an anecdote about making a deliberate decision not to live in fear anymore.
Right, even if it meant, like, financial adjustments.
Yeah, even if it meant financial choices that resulted in a beat-up car, a small house, and modest clothes. It was this profound choice to prioritize freedom from fear over, say, external validation or material things.
That takes guts.
It does, and this isn't about being fearless, because let's face it, that's impossible.
Right.
It's about deliberate, active resistance, confronting fears directly, talking with trusted people about what's real versus what's just in our heads.
Using friends as a reality check.
Exactly. Using friends like a GPS system to triangulate your real position when you feel lost in those shame stories.
Yeah.
It's about reaching out and testing those narratives.
Okay.
Think of it like starving a fire of oxygen. Fear is the oxygen for shame.
Ah, I like that.
Without it, shame will go out. Now, it won't be instant, and it might flicker back. But by systematically removing its fuel source, by choosing courage over fear again and again, you eventually diminish its power.
Starving the fire. That's a powerful image. But what does courage really mean here? We often think of, heroes running into burning buildings.
Yeah, the grand gestures.
But the Latin root, cor, meaning heart, gives us something deeper, doesn't it?
Absolutely. In its earliest forms, courage actually meant to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart.
Wow. Telling your heart. Authenticity.
Exactly. It's about authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And it also clarifies that courage isn't the absence of fear. It actually requires fear.
Right. Can't be brave if you're not scared.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You can't be courageous without vulnerability and therefore some element of fear. If there's nothing at stake, nothing to be afraid of, there's no courage involved.
Oh.
Courage is about working through that fear, the fear of rejection maybe, or fear of negative consequences to defend people or ideals or just your authentic self, things you hold dear.
It's active.
It's an active internal process of choosing to show up, despite the potential for pain or criticism. It's what allows us to step into the arena, as Brown often puts it, instead of just, staying safely on the sidelines.
Okay, but if courage requires vulnerability, that's where a lot of us just hit a wall.
Understandably.
The natural question is, why would anyone want to be vulnerable? Why open yourself up to possible harm?
It feels so counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
To intentionally put ourselves out there where we could get hurt.
And that's a perfectly logical question from a self-protection standpoint. Of course it is. But the answer, really, in a word, connection.
Connection.
Without vulnerability, there is no genuine connection. It's like wearing that suit of impenetrable armor.
Right, you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, you're protected, nothing gets in, but crucially, nothing gets out either. No one can truly touch you, no one can genuinely connect if you're always shielded.
Okay.
The good news, though, is that vulnerability isn't some kind of like all or nothing switch you flip.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Because that sounds terrifying.
Right. It's not like you wake up one day and say, okay, today is vulnerability day, here I go.
Yeah, no.
Instead, Brown describes it as this gradual process, sending out little test balloons.
Test balloons. Like what? Like small bids for connection. Little disclosures to just gauge how safe a person or a relationship feels. The sources give these really relatable examples like whining about my car payment to see how he reacts.
Okay, something small, low stakes.
Exactly. Or suggesting drinks at that bar right next to the counseling center to subtly test the waters about maybe talking about past depression.
Ah, clever.
There aren't grand revelations, just small openings. And the key is each bid for connection that gets met with a positive, empathetic response. Well, it opens us up for more.
So you build trust incrementally.
Yes, allowing us to slowly let others into our authentic selves piece by piece.
What's crucial here, then, sounds like the concept of perceived safety.
Absolutely critical.
Our willingness to be vulnerable, to walk into a new neighborhood in our relationships with these little test balloons, it hinges entirely on our perception of safety. Not necessarily objective reality, but what feels safe to us.
Precisely. I remember reading this anecdote about feeling unsafe in downtown Manhattan, not because of any actual imminent danger, but because of graffiti on the roll-down shop doors.
Just the look of things.
Yeah. Intellectually, there were uniformed officers nearby. Things were technically safe, but the visual cues, what Malcolm Gladwell talked about in Blink as the broken windows theory.
Oh, right. The idea that visible signs of disorder can make people feel less safe.
Exactly. That perception of unsafety was really strong, even if logically it didn't quite track.
It's like that in our relationships, too. And our perception of safety can be deeply shaped, sometimes years ago, maybe in childhood.
Like the ACE study, adverse childhood experiences.
Yes, exactly. The ACE study shows that if you were exposed to things like neglect or abuse growing up, you'll likely be more cautious, more reserved as an adult. You're predisposed to not be vulnerable because your baseline perception of safety is just lower.
Makes sense. Conversely, people with a high degree of inner safety, maybe from a more secure upbringing, they'll generally be more willing to take those risks in connection.
But there's a balance, right?
Oh, absolutely. A crucial balance. You can't have your safety set point so high that you step in front of a truck without looking.
Right.
But being so afraid that you can't leave your metaphorical home, that you can't risk connection, that's also dysfunctional. We need enough perceived safety to allow for healthy, growth-oriented vulnerability.
Okay. So as we're navigating this path to connection, trying to be vulnerable, trying to build trust,
Yeah.
it seems vital to understand the different types of support we might get or give.
Yes. Big difference.
We often confuse sympathy with empathy, and Brown's work really clarifies this, I think. So sympathy, she says, is about separation.
Separation, yeah.
It's acknowledging someone's pain, but often with this undercurrent of, oh, poor you, I can't possibly understand. It's pity, really, not connection. It creates distance.
And she warns about sympathy suckers.
Right. People who seem to crave your energy and attention for their pain, but then push away any real attempt at deep connection. They want to stay separate in their suffering.
That's a powerful warning. Definitely something to watch for. In contrast, empathy. That's more simple expression of, I understand this about you.
So it's about finding common ground.
Exactly. It's not about understanding everything or even having the exact same experience, but connecting through shared aspects of experience. Like, you might use the experience of losing a brother to connect with someone who lost a child.
You can connect on the shared pain of loss itself.
Right. Acknowledging that shared pain of profound loss, even if the specifics differ. You're saying, I see you, I feel with you in this part of your experience.
Okay, and then there's compassion.
Yeah, going even deeper. Compassion is when you not only understand and feel with someone, but you're also moved to action.
Empathy plus action.
Kind of. It's attempting to maybe experience your own related pain again, to truly understand another's suffering, and then being moved to help alleviate that suffering in some way, however small. It's empathy with a call to action, you can say.
Got it. That distinction is really helpful. It also makes me think about how we define ourselves and others, especially when shame gets involved, the power of bad labels.
Oh, huge. Labels are incredibly powerful.
We say sticks and stones, but words, the labels we use, they stick.
They absolutely do. Research consistently shows that labels we apply, both to ourselves and others, subtly but persistently shape behavior. Think of those studies where students labeled bad or at risk.
They start performing more poorly.
Exactly. They internalize that identity. Or Carol Dweck's work in Mindset, how labeling yourself as stupid or not a math person often leads people to live down to those expectations. They fulfill the prophecy.
Shame seems to love doing that, doesn't it? Defining us by our worst moments.
Totally. It grabs onto a single failure or mistake and makes that the whole story, completely failing to recognize the whole complex picture of who we are.
We're not just one moment.
None of us are.
Wait.
We're this complex, evolving series of good and bad decisions, intentions, actions, the whole mix. A really healthy, powerful act of shame resistance is to refuse to be permanently defined by our worst moments.
So acknowledge it. Take responsibility.
Absolutely. Acknowledge what happened, take responsibility, make restitution if possible, learn, reform ourselves. But refuse, absolutely refuse, to let that single incident become the immutable label that defines our entire being forever.
Refusing that label is one critical piece, but it feels like that's often compounded by another pressure, this sort of unspoken thing, the illusion of peak perfection.
Yeah, the Instagram effect, maybe.
Kind of. We're constantly bombarded with images of seemingly flawless lives, celebrities, influencers, maybe even people we know. Everything looks perfect from the outside until suddenly it isn't, and then we're shocked.
And that's the danger, isn't it? This constant projection of a perfect image takes an incredible, exhausting toll. We start to believe in our highly edited world that perfection isn't just possible, it's expected.
Yeah.
And this leads to these exhausting attempts to hide struggles, maybe gambling or drinking too much, or marital problems, or financial worries. We try to keep up this flawless facade.
But nobody has that kind of energy.
Exactly. No one can sustain that. No one can be all things to all people all the time.
Yeah.
It's impossible. And this relentless pursuit of perfection, it results in profound loneliness and shame.
Yeah.
We silently condemn ourselves for failing to meet this impossible goal.
Feeling like an imposter.
Deeply isolating, yeah.
That's such a powerful point. And the sources you mentioned give a really specific, almost heartbreaking example of this when it comes to caregivers.
Yes, caregiving. The sheer emotional exhaustion caregivers face often gets twisted and amplified by shame. Well, it's apparently quite normal in moments of just profound exhaustion to have fleeting dark thoughts like, what if this person died? Just out of sheer desperation for relief.
Oh, wow. That must feel awful.
Terribly guilt-inducing. And the shame response immediately jumps in, making the caregiver think they are an absolute monster for even having such a thought.
But Brown's work reframes that.
Yes, it helps us understand that these are actually pretty normal responses to overwhelming exhaustion and stress. They're not a sign of being a monster. But shame prevents caregivers from seeing this truth. It pushes them to believe they must be super, never admit weakness, handle everything perfectly.
Which is unsustainable.
Completely. The hard truth, the book argues, is that caregivers must stand their ground and insist on support for their own well-being, not just for themselves, but actually for the person they're caring for too.
Right, because burnout doesn't help anyone.
Exactly. Allowing themselves to be human, imperfect, and in need of help is actually a radical act of self-acceptance and shame resistance in that context.
Okay, so if perfection is an illusion, this impossible goal, does that mean we just give up, stop striving?
Not at all. Absolutely not. Understanding that perfection is an illusion isn't an excuse to just sit back and do nothing, embrace mediocrity.
Okay, good.
Instead, it actually fundamentally underscores the need for learning. We need to learn from our mistakes, from our failures. We strive to be better, not perfect.
Growth, not perfection.
Exactly. We become the best possible version of ourselves through our learning, through grappling with trials and failures, through our resilience when faced with imperfection.
And this also connects to the idea you mentioned earlier about being multifaceted.
Yes, you are more complex than any single view or label someone tries to put on you.
Like the example you gave, having diverse interests, maybe programming and psychology, people struggle to put you in one box.
Right. And it can feel isolating sometimes when people try to force you into just one category. How does shame play into that? It subtly encourages us to narrow ourselves down, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To hide those other facets just to fit in or feel acceptable.
Yeah, it makes us disconnect from parts of ourselves.
That's a crucial point because shame often leads us to become disconnected from ourselves. We focus on just one facet, maybe the one we think is most acceptable, and judge it harshly, missing the richness and complexity of our own being.
Which leads to a really fascinating question. How well do we actually know ourselves?
It seems like it should be easy, right?
Yeah.
We live with ourselves 24/7.
You'd think.
But as all these thinkers like Daniel Gilbert in Stumbling on Happiness, Jonathan Haidt in The Happiness Hypothesis, Daniel Kahneman in Thinking Fast and Slow point out, we're not really one single commander at the helm.
Not just one unified self.
Apparently not. We're often more like Haidt's metaphor, this big emotional elephant driven by pattern recognition and instinct with a tiny rational rider perched on top, mostly just trying to justify the decisions the elephant already made.
Uh-huh. I like that image. The rider thinking it's in charge.
Exactly. And then you have Dan Ariely in Predictably Irrational or David Eagleman in Incognito, showing how our brains can actually, well, lie to us about our motivations and choices. They create these neat narratives to make us feel coherent, even when our underlying drives are complex, contradictory, even unconscious.
So we're not even reliable narrators of our own lives. That's humbling.
It really is. All of this is just to say that understanding ourselves is perhaps the hardest, yet also the most profoundly rewarding thing we'll ever do. It's truly a lifelong journey of excavation and acceptance.
Wow.
And ultimately, the way to conquer shame, it's kind of counterintuitive. It's to become weak, in a sense.
How so?
To be vulnerable, to embrace your authentic, imperfect self. The path to victory, to true self-acceptance and connection, it runs through the forest of defeat. Through acknowledging our shared humanity, our shared imperfections, and realizing that true strength actually comes from embracing our vulnerabilities.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, our listener, as you navigate your own journey?
Yeah, what's the takeaway?
Well, I think the core insight from this deep dive into Brené Brown's foundational work is really this. Even though I thought it was just me, it isn't.
Never is.
Our imperfections are not flaws that disqualify us. They are, in fact, what truly connect us to one another and to our shared humanity. Our vulnerabilities aren't weaknesses we need to hide. They are powerful reminders to keep our hearts and minds open to the reality that, hey, we're all in this together, striving, struggling, growing. So maybe think about how you might challenge your own perceived safety just a little bit this week. Offer one tiny test balloon of vulnerability, perhaps to a trusted friend or family member. What might happen if you just shared a tiny piece of your real self?
And building on that, I'd invite you to consider how embracing your multifaceted self, all those different parts of you, rather than trying to squeeze into a single narrow label, how that could be your most powerful act of shame resistance, your strongest path to self-connection. What might open up for you if you allowed yourself to be seen? Not as perfect, but as perfectly human, flaws and all, just like everyone else around you.
Something powerful to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope these insights empower you to continue exploring these important ideas in your own life and relationships.